Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Daily English Lab podcast. Here's a question. What language are you thinking in right now as you listen to me? If you're translating my words into your native language before you understand them, I need to tell you something important. You will never become fluent in English as long as you keep translating in your head. I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. Translation is the invisible prison that keeps English learners stuck at the intermediate level forever. I've watched hundreds of students break through this barrier, and every single one of them did it the same way. They stopped translating and started thinking directly in English. And here's the crazy part. You can start doing this today. Not in 6 months, not after you learn more vocabulary, today. Because thinking in English isn't about knowing more English. It's about rewiring how your brain processes language. In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you the exact system my students used to switch from translation mode to English thinking mode. Some of them made this shift in as little as 2 weeks. Ready to finally break free from translation? Let's do this. Hey everyone, I'm your English coach. And my passion is helping you achieve genuine fluency, not just textbook knowledge. And nothing, and I mean nothing, will accelerate your fluency faster than learning to think in English. So let me tell you why I'm so obsessed with this topic. For years, I taught English the traditional way. Grammar exercises, vocabulary lists, conversation practice. My students improved, but slowly. They could understand me when I spoke clearly, but struggled with movies and real conversations. They could express themselves, but it took forever because they were constantly translating. Then I discovered something that changed my entire teaching philosophy. I realized that fluent speakers don't translate. They think directly in their target language. Their brain processes English, not as a translation of their native language. And here's the breakthrough. You can train your brain to do this. Why does this matter so much? Because translation creates a massive bottleneck. Think about it. When someone asks you a question in English, your brain has to hear the English, translate it to your language, formulate a response in your language, translate that back to English, and then speak. That's 4 steps. No wonder you feel slow and hesitant. But when you think in English, your brain processes the question directly and responds directly. 2 steps. You become twice as fast, twice as confident, twice as fluent. Today, I'm going to teach you 5 powerful techniques that will rewire your brain for English thinking. First, we'll start with simple self-narration that you can do anywhere. Second, I'll show you how to build an English environment in your mind. Third, we'll tackle visualization and imagination techniques. Fourth, I'll teach you the mental vocabulary expansion method. And finally, we'll cover how to handle those moments when you don't know a word without switching back to translation. This is 25 minutes that could genuinely transform your English journey. By the end, you'll have a complete roadmap for thinking in English. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, do you currently translate in your head when speaking English, or have you started thinking directly in English sometimes? Be honest. This helps me understand where you're at and how I can help you better. And if you're serious about reaching true fluency, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. I create content like this every week specifically to help you break through the barriers that traditional courses don't address. All right, let's unlock your English brain. The first technique, and this is where everyone should start, is self-narration. This means describing what you're doing, seeing, and feeling in English as you go through your day. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful because it forces your brain to default to English instead of your native language. And self-narration works because it creates constant, low-pressure practice. You're not in a conversation where you feel judged. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just training your brain to operate in English mode. And because you're describing your own life, you already know the context, which makes it easier to think in English without needing to translate. Most people make 3 mistakes with self-narration. First, they wait until they know enough vocabulary to start. Wrong. Start now with whatever English you have. Second, they try to narrate in complex sentences and give up when it's too hard. Start simple. Third, they do it once or twice and expect magical results. This is a daily practice that builds over time. Let me show you exactly what self-narration looks like at different levels. Let's say you're making breakfast. Beginner level. I am making breakfast. I am getting eggs. I am getting bread. I am cooking. Intermediate level. I'm making breakfast right now. I need to crack these eggs into the pan. Oh, the bread is burning. I should turn down the heat. Advanced level. I'm starving this morning. Let me whip up some scrambled eggs. Oh man, I forgot to buy butter yesterday. I guess I'll use olive oil instead. I hope this turns out okay. Notice how all three levels work? You don't need to wait until you're advanced. You start where you are and gradually add complexity. Right now, pull out your phone. Go to Settings, change the language to English. I'm serious, do it now. This one change will give you hundreds of micro exposures to English every single day. If you're watching this on your computer, change that to English too. These devices should be English-only zones from now on. Think of this as the English bubble strategy. You're creating a bubble around yourself where English is the default language. The bigger your bubble, the faster you'll think in English. Start with your phone, expand to your computer, then your entertainment, then your thoughts. Gradually grow your English bubble until it becomes your new normal. I have to share this story about Lynn, a student from Taiwan. She was living in Taiwan, working in a Chinese-speaking office, surrounded by Mandarin 24/7. She felt like she'd never think in English in that environment. But she was determined. She changed everything she could control to English. Phone, computer, streaming services, books, even her shopping lists. Her roommates thought she was crazy, but here's what happened. After 6 weeks, she was helping a Mandarin-speaking friend with something and caught herself explaining it in English first, then translating to Mandarin. Her brain's default had actually flipped. She was thinking in English first. She told me it was the most surreal, amazing feeling. That's what environmental immersion can do. Quick poll. How much of your daily environment is currently in English versus your native language? Give me a percentage in the comments. Be honest. Is it 10% English? 50%? 90%? Let's see where everyone's at. So, you're narrating your life and you're building your English environment. Your brain is starting to shift. But there's a technique that's even more powerful than these two, and it involves something you're already doing every day without realizing it. We're going to hijack that mental process for English learning. The third technique is mental rehearsal or visualization. This means imagining conversations, situations, and scenarios in English before they happen, or even imagining completely fictional scenarios just for practice. You're essentially having conversations with yourself in English inside your mind. Mental rehearsal is incredibly powerful because your brain doesn't distinguish much between real experience and vividly imagined experience. When you visualize having a conversation in English, your brain creates the same neural pathways as if you were actually having that conversation. Athletes use this technique all the time. Basketball players visualize making free throws. Gymnasts visualize their routines. You can visualize English conversations. The mistakes with visualization are interesting. First, people don't do it at all because they don't realize it's a valid practice method. Second, when they do try it, they visualize in their native language and then translate to English, which defeats the purpose. Third, they only visualize successful, perfect conversations, which isn't realistic. You should visualize struggling, making mistakes, and recovering too. Let me show you how mental rehearsal works in practice. Let's say you have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Instead of worrying about it, visualize it in English. Imagine walking into the office. I have an appointment with Dr. Smith. Yes, please have a seat. The doctor will be with you shortly. Imagine the waiting room. There are several people here. I'm a bit nervous. I hope this checkup goes well. Imagine the examination. How are you feeling? I've been having some headaches recently. How often? About 3 times a week. See what's happening? You're preloading your brain with English phrases and patterns for this situation. When the real appointment happens, your brain says, "Ooh,
I've done this before in English and the words come much more naturally. Another example. You're going to a restaurant. Visualize the entire experience. Walking in. Table for two, please. Right this way. Sitting down. This place looks nice. I'm pretty hungry. Ordering. I'll have the grilled chicken with vegetables. And to drink? Just water, please. During the meal. This is delicious. How's yours? Really good. Want to try some? Paying. Can we get the check, please? Here you go. Have a great evening. You can also visualize completely imaginary scenarios just for practice. Imagine being interviewed on a talk show in English. Imagine explaining your job to a stranger. Imagine telling a funny story from your childhood. Imagine giving advice to a friend about a problem. All in English, all in your mind. Here's one more practical example. Preparing for a job interview. Visualize the whole thing. Tell me about yourself. Well, I graduated with a degree in marketing 3 years ago. Since then, I've been working in digital advertising. I'm particularly interested in social media strategy. What's your greatest strength? I think I'm really good at creative problem solving. When faced with challenges, I enjoy finding innovative solutions. By the time the real interview happens, you've already had this conversation 10 times in your head. The English flows naturally because your brain has rehearsed it. Close your eyes for 30 seconds. Imagine you're introducing yourself to a new colleague at work. Visualize the entire interaction in English. What do you say? What do they say? How do you respond? Make it vivid and detailed. Include the environment, the body language, the emotions. Do this right now. 30 seconds. Go. How did that feel? Awkward at first, but your brain was working in English, right? Do this daily. Visualize tomorrow's conversations, imaginary situations, anything. It's free practice you can do anywhere. Use dead time for mental rehearsal. Waiting in line? Visualize a conversation. On a boring commute? Visualize a scenario. Can't sleep at night? Visualize English situations instead of counting sheep. You have about an hour of dead time every day. That's an hour of mental English practice you're currently wasting.
My student Hassan had terrible anxiety about speaking English at work meetings. He understood everything, but when it was his turn to speak, his mind went blank. I taught him mental rehearsal. Every morning, he'd visualize the day's meetings in English. He'd imagine what questions might come up and how he'd answer them. He'd visualize making his points clearly. After 3 weeks of this daily visualization practice, he told me something shifted. In a real meeting, he raised his hand to speak, and the words just came out. Naturally, confidently. His brain had rehearsed this moment so many times in English that the real moment felt familiar, not scary. That's the magic of visualization. Here's my question for you. Do you ever rehearse conversations in your head before they happen? If yes, what language do you do that in? Comment below. And if you rehearse in your native language, I challenge you to switch to English starting today. All right, we've covered self-narration, environmental immersion, and mental rehearsal. You're building a solid foundation for English thinking, but there's a specific challenge everyone faces, and it stops people dead in their tracks. What do you do when you don't know a word? Most people switch back to translation. I'm going to show you a better way. The fourth technique is absolutely critical. Learning to explain words you don't know in English rather than reaching for translation. This is called circumlocution, which means talking around a word using other words. It's how you stay in English mode even when you hit a vocabulary gap. Here's what usually happens when you don't know a word. You're thinking in English, you hit a word you don't know, you panic, you switch back to your native language, you translate, you lose your English momentum. Then you have to switch back to English again. All that switching is exhausting and slow. But if you learn to describe unknown words in English, you never leave English mode. Your brain stays immersed. Your thinking stays fluent. The mistakes here are predictable. First, people immediately give up and reach for translation rather than trying to describe the word. Second, they think they need to know the exact word to communicate effectively. Wrong. Native speakers work around unknown words all the time. Third, they get frustrated and stop thinking in English altogether when they hit vocabulary gaps. Let me show you how circumlocution works in practice. Let's say you want to talk about a screwdriver, but you don't know that word. Instead of switching to your language, you describe it in English. It's a tool. You use it to put in screws. It has a handle and a metal part that fits into the screw head. That's circumlocution. You communicated the idea without knowing the exact word, and you stayed in English mode. Another example. You want to say anxious, but you don't know that word. You can say, I feel nervous, like worried about something that might happen. My heart beats fast and I can't relax. Perfect. You communicated anxious without using that word. One more. You forget the word receipt. You say, the paper they give you when you buy something. It shows what you bought and how much you paid. You need it if you want to return the item. See? You just explained receipt without saying receipt. Here's a real-life scenario. You're at a hardware store and you need a specific tool but don't know its English name. Instead of pulling out your phone to translate, you say to the employee, I need something to cut wood. It's electric and has a flat base with a circular blade. The employee says, oh, a circular saw. Boom. You communicated your need, stayed in English mode, and learned the correct term naturally. Another scenario. You're describing your day to a friend and you want to talk about traffic, but your mind blanks on the word. You say, there were so many cars on the road. Nobody could move. Everything was very slow. I was stuck for 30 minutes. Your friend says, oh, there was bad traffic. Perfect. You communicated and learned. Let's practice circumlocution right now. I'm going to give you a word, and I want you to describe it in English without using the word itself. Ready? Word, umbrella. Describe it. Out loud. Think, it's something you use when it rains. It protects you from water. It's like a roof that you hold. Word, sneeze. Describe it. It's something your body does when your nose is irritated. Air comes out suddenly and loudly. You often do it when you're sick or there's dust. Word, refrigerator. Describe it. It's a big box in your kitchen. It keeps food cold. You put milk, vegetables, and other things inside to keep them fresh. Do 5 more on your own right now. Pick random objects around you and describe them in English without naming them. This trains your brain to work around vocabulary gaps. Remember this mantra. Describe, don't translate. Every time you hit a word you don't know, your automatic response should be, how can I describe this in English, not what's this in my language? This mindset shift is crucial. You're training your brain to solve language problems within English, not by escaping to translation.
I love this story about Fatima, one of my intermediate students. She was terrified of speaking because she felt her vocabulary was too small. Every time she didn't know a word, she'd freeze up completely. I taught her circumlocution and challenged her to have a full conversation with me without using her native language even once. She had to describe anything she couldn't name. At first, she was slow and frustrated. But something amazing happened about 10 minutes in. She was trying to describe deadline, and she said, the date when you must finish something or there's a problem. I said, oh, a deadline. She got so excited. She realized she could communicate complex ideas with simple English. After that session, her entire approach changed. She stopped worrying about perfect vocabulary and started focusing on clear communication. Her fluency skyrocketed. Challenge time. In the comments, describe something without naming it. Make it tricky. Let's see if others can guess what you're describing. This is a fun way to practice circumlocution together. Okay, you've learned 4 powerful techniques, but there's one final strategy that ties everything together. It's about expanding your vocabulary the right way so you can think in English more easily. And no, it doesn't involve memorizing lists. Let's dive into the final technique. The 5th and final technique is mental vocabulary expansion. This means learning new words in English, thinking about them in English, and using them in English contexts, never through translation. You're building your English vocabulary inside your English brain, not by creating bridges to your native language. When you learn vocabulary through translation, you create a dependency on your native language. Every time you use that word, your brain has to access it through translation. But when you learn vocabulary within English, using English definitions, English examples, and English contexts, you create direct pathways. The word is connected to meaning, not to another language's word. This makes thinking in English so much faster and more natural. The vocabulary learning mistakes are everywhere. First, learners use bilingual dictionaries that give them direct translations. This creates translation dependencies. Second, they learn words in isolation without context, so they never really understand how to use them. Third, they try to learn too many words too fast, which leads to forgetting everything. Let me show you the difference between translation learning and English context learning. Translation method. You see the word exhausted. You look it up in a bilingual dictionary. It says cansado or smenchoni, or whatever your language's equivalent is. Now in your brain, exhausted equals that word in your language. Every time you want to use exhausted, your brain thinks of your language's word first. English context method. You see the word exhausted. You look it up in an English dictionary or search engine. It says extremely tired, completely drained of energy. You read example sentences. After running the marathon, I felt exhausted. She's been working 12-hour days and she's absolutely exhausted. You create your own sentence. I always feel exhausted after studying for 3 hours. See the difference? In the second method, you learned exhausted through English, not through your language. It's connected directly to the concept of being extremely tired. Let's try another word, disappointed. Translation method, disappointed equals decepcionado, desu, or whatever your language's equivalent is. That's the connection. English context method, disappointed means feeling sad because something didn't meet your expectations. When you hoped for something and it didn't happen, you feel disappointed. Example, I was disappointed when my flight got canceled. Example, he was disappointed with his test score. Example, she seemed disappointed that we couldn't come to her party. Now, disappointed is connected to the feeling, the concept, and real situations, not to a word in another language. Here's how to practice. When you encounter a new word, don't reach for a translation. Instead, follow these steps. Step 1. Look up the English definition in an English learner's dictionary or Google the word. Step 2. Read at least 3 example sentences showing how the word is used. Step 3. Create your own personal example sentence using the word about your own life. Step 4. Try to use the word in conversation or writing within 24 hours. Let's practice with the word thrilled. Instead of translating, learn it in English. Thrilled means extremely happy and excited about something. Example, I'm thrilled about my new job. Example, she was thrilled to receive the award. Example, we're absolutely thrilled that you can come to visit. Now make it personal. I'd be thrilled if I could speak English fluently in 6 months. See, you just learned thrilled entirely in English, connected it to emotions and context, and made it personal. That's mental vocabulary expansion. Here's your practice. Pick a word you recently learned in English. Right now, explain its meaning in English without translating. Then create 3 sentences using it. Do this out loud. For example, if you recently learned the word grateful, you might say, grateful means feeling thankful and appreciative. You feel grateful when someone does something nice for you or when you have something good in your life. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to learn English. She was grateful for his help. Do this exercise with every new word you learn from now on. Think of your English vocabulary as a web, not a list. Each word should connect to other English words, to contexts, to emotions, to memories, not to words in your native language. When you learn a new word, immediately connect it to words you already know. Thrilled is like excited, but stronger. It's more intense than happy. It's similar to ecstatic. You're building an English web in your brain.
One of my most dramatic transformations was with a student named Ahmed. He had been learning English for 12 years using bilingual dictionaries and translation apps. He had a huge vocabulary, but couldn't think in English. Everything went through Arabic first. I banned him from using bilingual dictionaries for 1 month. He could only use English dictionaries and search engines. He was furious at first. He said it was too slow and frustrating, but I insisted. After 2 weeks, he came to class and said something incredible. He said, I was trying to remember the word for something and my brain gave me the English word first, not the Arabic word. It's never done that before. By the end of the month, he told me he had started dreaming in English and even talking to himself in English. Removing translation from his vocabulary learning rewired his entire language processing system. Last question before we wrap up the teaching. What method do you currently use to learn new vocabulary? Bilingual dictionaries, flashcards with translations, English definitions? Let me know in the comments, and I'll tell you if you should keep doing it or switch to a better method. Okay, 5 powerful techniques to help you think in English. You have a complete system now. But before we finish, I need to warn you about 3 critical mistakes that will sabotage everything you just learned. Make sure you avoid these. Now that you have these 5 techniques, let me warn you about 3 traps that will prevent you from successfully thinking in English. Mistake number 1. Expecting instant results. This is huge. You're not going to start thinking in English fluently tomorrow. Your brain needs time to rewire itself. You've spent years thinking in your native language. That's a deeply ingrained habit. Breaking it takes consistent practice over weeks and months, not days. Some people see changes in 2 weeks. Others need 2 months. Don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen immediately. Trust the process. Practice daily. The shift will come. Mistake number 2, switching back to your native language too often. This is the killer. You practice thinking in English for 10 minutes, then you spend the rest of the day entirely in your native language. Your brain never fully commits to English. You need sustained practice. Try to extend your English thinking time. Start with 5 minutes, then 10, then 30. Create chunks of time where you're completely in English mode. The more time you spend thinking in English, even imperfectly, the faster your brain will adapt. Mistake number 3, waiting until you're perfect. Some of you are thinking, I'll start thinking in English when my vocabulary is bigger, or I'll do this when I understand grammar better. No, start now, today, with the English you already have. You don't need perfect English to think in English. You need practice thinking in English to improve your English. It's circular. The practice creates the improvement, waiting creates nothing. Simple English thinking is still English thinking. Start simple, get better over time. Remember, thinking in English is a skill, not a destination. You don't suddenly arrive at perfect English thinking one day. You gradually improve over time. Every day you practice, your brain gets a little better at defaulting to English. Trust the process and stay consistent. Let's quickly summarize the 5 techniques that will help you start thinking in English. Technique 1, self-narration. Describe what you're doing, seeing, and feeling in English throughout your day. Start simple. Practice daily. Build the habit. Technique 2, environmental immersion. Surround yourself with English. Change your devices to English. Consume English media. Create an English bubble around your life. Technique 3, mental rehearsal. Visualize conversations and situations in English before they happen. Use dead time for English mental practice. Rehearse both real and imaginary scenarios. Technique 4, circumlocution. When you don't know a word, describe it in English instead of translating. Stay in English mode even when you hit vocabulary gaps. Describe, don't translate. Technique 5, mental vocabulary expansion. Learn new words using English definitions, English examples, and English contexts, never through translation. Build an English web in your brain. These 5 techniques work together to rewire your brain for English thinking. Start with self-narration, add environmental immersion, practice mental rehearsal, use circumlocution when needed, expand vocabulary the right way. Within weeks, you'll notice your brain defaulting to English more and more naturally. You've got this. The tools are in your hands. Now you just need to use them consistently. You just learned the complete system for thinking in English, the same system that transformed hundreds of my students from slow translators to fluent thinkers. Here's what I want you to do right now. Pick one technique from today's video, just one. Commit to practicing it every single day this week. Comment below and tell me which technique you're starting with. Self-narration, environmental immersion, mental rehearsal. Make that public commitment. If this video gave you hope that fluency is actually achievable, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Next week, I'm revealing the 5 English sounds you're probably pronouncing wrong and how to fix them in 10 minutes. You don't want to miss that. Remember, thinking in English isn't about knowing more English. It's about changing how your brain processes English. You can start with the English you have right now, today, this moment. Stop translating, start thinking. Your fluent English brain is waiting to be activated. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep practicing, keep thinking, and keep living in English. Let's unlock your English potential together.